What's going on, America? This is Kevin from Kevin's Corner, and I'm about to make some real sense out of all of this nonsense. Now, I want y'all to think about this. I'm about to lay something heavy on y'all. This is something that you can pass along to a lot of people who are walking around still drunk and not able to see the diabolical scheme, motive, and objective of the Democrats. I'm going to drop it heavy on them like a sack of potatoes, like an Advil, like a big gigantic boulder. One of them big ones you see on the cartoons that the coyote be trying to kill the road runner with. I'm about to drop one of them on them. So now, you look at the Democratic Party. You got two parties that are in power. You got the Democrats and you got the Republicans, okay? But what is the difference between the two? Well, one group thinks one way, the other group thinks another way, but yet they all have equal shared power. Okay, so these are all rich, mostly rich, upper class, white people who control one party, rich, upper class, white people to control the other party. Now, you would think that since the majority of them are rich, white people, there would be no animosity between the two parties. But instead, there has to be some type of animosity or division drawn, or at least perception painted towards one of the parties to give an advantage to the other party. Right? So they want to create a contrast between them, a comparison and a contrast between the Republican Party. So what then is the goal of the Democrats? It is absolute power. See, they're not afraid of the people, the masses. The masses mean nothing to them because, see, the minority, even though they're small, they have access to power, money, information that most people don't have access to, resources like the military. These are all things that even though the Democratic Party or governmental leaders or corporate owners, even though they might not have the numbers, it's not about the numbers. It is simply about the access to information, the power, and the resources that you have. That is why that a group can be controlled by one person if that person has captured the mind of them or has the ability to invoke their will upon that large group. And you're thinking to yourself, why don't they just rise up and overthrow that one or two people this dominating them? I don't understand it. Same thing in slavery. You would look and you see a whole bunch of slaves on the plantation, and one slave master or whoever rides along in the horse with the whip, and you're thinking to yourself, why don't they just jump this dude? Well, when they first got there, I'm sure the first couple slaves said, let's jump him and get out of here. It's only one of him. But what they didn't understand is the slave master had modern weapons, had access to more resources, and he probably shot one or two of them, and they realized, whoa, hold up. This is what happens to anybody who rises up against the slave master, even though it might be one or two of them. We don't have the power to fight back against the slave master. Then over time, instead of doing it through physical force, they start controlling the masses through mental force. They capture the mind, get them content, get them reliant on the master. And then after a while, you don't have no pushback. They comply. They all are happy to be on the plantation because master treats them good. Okay, but what was the combating force against, say, the Democratic Party during slavery? The Republican Party. The Republican Party was like, nah, let's end slavery. So now you have two minority powerful forces, but they think differently. This one thinks about freedom, justice, equality for all. This one thinks about power, money, and control. So now this party says, if we could only get rid of this party, that will give us absolute power. And that's what the Democrats want to do. So I'm thinking to myself, how is it then that all of these white billionaires on the left can get up there and say things like, these people are exercising their white privilege and they demonize other white men? And I'm saying, but wait a minute, they're white. How can they do this? Well, they can do it because they're not afraid of the fallout. So I'm thinking, well, what if you demonize all white men and say they all suffer from white privilege and nationalism, And all of these minorities one day say, well, you know what we're going to do? We're going to rise up against all these white people and we're going to overthrow them. Why then would the white Democrats be pushing narratives like that on other white men and not worry about the masses rising up and overthrowing all white people? Well, they don't worry about it because they understand something. The only thing they are threatened by is other powerful white people. So now the goal and objective is to paint those people as white nationalists, white privilege, all of that stuff. And they say to themselves, if we can have the masses reject those white people, if those white people today were wiped out, if we created the large population of Americans as minorities, we're still not worried. You know why? Because that'll leave only us to have absolute power over all the population, and the masses we can still control just like we did during slavery. We control them mentally. We can control them through the resources we unleash. We can control them if necessary by force because we have access to stuff they don't have. The only thing that can challenge our absolute power is those white people who we can trick minorities into thinking that they're different from us. So we can go ahead and say they're white privilege and totally just bypass our logic and make us think for some reason, even though we're listening to a white man or white woman call other white men and women white privilege, for some reason it doesn't register in a lot of minorities' minds to think and say, but wait, you guys are white too. Now, that's the first thing black people or any minority should be saying. Wait a minute, how are you saying they got white privilege and you're just as white as them? Only way that we would know you're different is you open your mouth and we hear what you got to say. But if you're saying white privilege, then that should be based on just simply being white, which throws you in the same category. But that's too smart. That's too smart for us to recognize. So we listen and tolerate them because they want to come across as we're not like those white people whose white privilege, even though we have the same money, resources, and power. But no, we're not like that. Now, let's just for 1 second think about this. If the whole conservative Republican Party was annihilated, all the African Americans, Latinos, whoever rose up and cast them away, or they simply demonized them enough to shut them up and make sure they never get in power again, then that small minority can control the masses anyway. They're not worried about whether we let 1 billion Mexicans or illegal immigrants or Haitians or whoever come into the country. They don't worry about the masses. They don't worry about whether it's going to be all one big race or a whole bunch of races of people. All they know is we give them enough to eat. We make sure we control their resources. We make sure we control the information that they're getting. And if need be, we'll go ahead and put the smackdown on them too to keep them in control. Now, this is the sad part about this. This is the same mentality. This is for all the minorities who still sleep. Same mentality and idea that Charles Manson had. He said black people aren't smart, but they're growing in numbers. And one day they might rise up, overthrow white people. So let's start the revolution right now. You know why? Because once all of the black people wipe out the white people, black people aren't intelligent enough to function and govern themselves. And that's when I'll step up and be their leader because I am able to control them mentally. That's right. He felt that minorities, black people, I'm sure he probably included a whole bunch of other people, wasn't able to properly function without an overseer. And that is how the Democratic Party thinks. They don't care about destroying our culture. They don't care about any of that stuff. All they care about is absolute power. And the only thing standing in their way is other rich, upper class, white, powerful people who can challenge that power. And they are saying, we got to demonize them, get rid of them, and that will give us absolute power. I just exposed the whole plan, diabolical scheme of the Democrats. God bless you. Find me every Wednesday night, 7:30, live in Kevin's Corner. We had a great show last night. Check it out if you get a chance. Also on my live radio blog talk show. Don't forget to hit like, share, the notification button, and subscribe. Almost at 100,000 subscribers. And finally, check out Extreme Tees. There's a link in the bottom of this video. You can find that. If you want to donate to Kevin's Corner, you can do that as well. There's a link there. And we will see y'all next time in Kevin's Corner. God bless.